we're seeing I'm seeing some stuff here on the Twitter sphere. I'm seeing reports here that Dan Lanning. Okay, this is breaking right now.
Oh my goodness!
Hey, let's just do this segment right now.
Yes.
Let's do this segment right now. Dan Lanning has announced he is remaining at Oregon. If you're an Oregon fan, this better fire you up, man. This better get you absolutely juiced because, to be honest, this was the one guy that, if I'm an Alabama fan, I wanted to be my next head coach. Dog of a recruiter. A guy who's pushed this brand to not just be where they were previously, but I think even surpassing that. The style of football they're playing, building in the trenches. I told you, dog of a recruiter, 2 top 10 classes his last couple of seasons at Oregon, in a place where you have to really go and find top talent to be able to get them to be at Eugene. Meaning, like, you got to take a lot of PJs, you got to be on the phone because you're not probably finding that top talent in your backyard. No disrespect to the state of Oregon, but you got to go to the Southeast, you got to go to California, you got to go to Texas. And Dan Lanning, the way that he's built that program, the culture and standards and character he's installed there, I think it's second to none in college football. And here's probably the biggest part of this of an Oregon fan. You've seen guys that have been your head coach love Oregon, love what Oregon's about. And then at the 11th hour, it just so happens that their dream job became available. Willie Taggart had success at Oregon. Florida State comes knocking, and he's like, hey, y'all, sorry. I love Florida State. This is the only spot I would have left for. They want me. I'm going. Mario Cristobal, same deal. He loved Oregon. Players lobbied for him to be the next head coach there. But the guy grew up in Miami. He went to Miami. So eventually, Miami comes knocking, and he says, listen, y'all, it's a personal thing. It's a heart thing for me. I love Oregon, but I got to go back home. For Dan Lanning, the thought for me in the back of my head was like, man, this was always the one job that probably made you a little bit nervous if you were an Oregon fan that he would leave for. And so here's my ultimate feel on this. If you're not leaving for the Alabama job with the place that it's at right now, with multiple top 2 classes on the roster, with the resources, with the brand power, Dan Lanning, I believe, is in a lot of ways wired like an SEC guy in terms of how competitive he is on the recruiting trail and the way that he cares about the trenches. If you're not leaving for the Alabama job right now, I don't know what job you would leave for if you're Dan Lanning. To put it simply, Oregon, I think you have your guy for the foreseeable future. Not just the next couple of years, not just the next 5 years. Like, he, I think, very clearly could be the next guy for you until he decides to retire. And he said that a lot, and he's kind of made that a known thing. But, I mean, it's all lip service until it actually happens, right? Dan Lanning shutting down the rumors that he could be the next guy at Alabama. I think Oregon has got their program guy here for a very, very long time. So another thing about this now, the way this is going to bolster Oregon in the future, if I'm a recruit and I see Dan Lanning say no to the Alabama job, he's serious about what he's building there. I'm not worried about him eventually taking their job in the future. So on the recruiting trail, anyone that could negatively recruit against Oregon and say, are you sure you want to go play for him? He's kind of a hot name on a lot of these different, hot boards, a lot of these different openings. He always comes up. Are you sure he's going to want to leave? You think he's ending up in those conversations on accident? This is the situation you can take if you're an Oregon recruit or an Oregon fan and just kind of mic drop on that whole situation. So Dan Lanning has announced he is remaining at Oregon. This happened live while we were on the air. I love this. I love that you have a guy who is bought into a school. Clearly the school is bought into him. Oregon moving to the Big Ten probably played a major factor in him staying at Oregon. Have to believe that. But if you're Oregon, man, you got to kind of puff out your chest a little bit today and say, all right, yeah, we had a couple of tough breaks with head coaches we had in the past, but this is a dude who is as bought into us as we are bought into him. Dan Lanning, proven once again, through and through, he's a program guy. I'll tell you this, too. I would play for him tomorrow by nature of how he communicates with his team, by nature of how he just has that competitive fire to him when he talks. I think his team buys into that. Like, Oregon's going to be a tough out here for a long, long time because of the fact that Dan Lanning, I believe, will be there for a long, long time. If you're saying no to Bama right now, I don't know who you're saying yes to in the near future. Again, I'm not saying that Bama offered him the job or that Bama wanted to bring him in for an interview or any of that, but you had to believe he was probably the top guy, if not for Alabama, for a lot of Alabama fans, to be the next guy in Tuscaloosa. Dan Lanning is staying in Eugene. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.